Correct.
I see Swami Sachidananda on your wall.
Yes, you could see very many of them because I got Swami Shivananda, Swami Sachidananda, Patabi Joyce, Iyengar, Satya Sai Baba,
Right.
quite a few, Swami Vishnu Devananda.
Good, good. Yeah, I consider my style. Some people sometimes ask me, which style of yoga do you follow? I said, I'm kind of the family of integral yoga practice. So the Swami, I've never seen Swami Sachidananda, or I've never seen Swami Sivananda or his disciple Swami Chidbhavananda, but I went to the college founded by Swami Chidbhavananda, who's a student of Swami Sivananda. So disciple, right? So, and Swami Sachidananda and Swami Chidbhavananda, they know each other. And I think at one stage, Swami Chidbhavananda was kind of a big brother in that system.
Yes, actually, I was fortunate enough to meet all of them and being with them, you know, like Swami Chidananda, Swami Sachidananda, Swami Krishnananda, you know, from Rishikesh, Swami Vishnudevananda, and so on and so forth.
Very nice, very nice.
Chimayananda as well in India, when I met him in India.
Very good, very good.
Anyway, so first of all, let me tell you that I am really very happy and I have the honor to speak to you, that you are becoming one of the main or key figures in the study and the practice and the teaching of that beautiful science, which is pranayama.
I'm honored. Thank you.
So, in order for the people who are going to see us all over, you know, the world and here in Spain as well, then what I will do is translate part of the video of our conversation into Spanish. So in this way, I think we disseminate your knowledge about pranayama, and therefore you'll be more known in Spain than anywhere else in the world.
Sounds like a good idea. I've never reached out to the Spanish-speaking audience, so you may be the first one to take this message. There are some people that got connected with me from the Americas, South America. So, but this will be from the other side. That's great.
South America, yeah. Well, okay, if we do have the chance sometime, you can come over to Spain just to teach. I'll be very glad to organize something to teach it over here. So I'd like to introduce to you, to the public, Dr. Sundar Balasubramanian, who is a cell biologist, a researcher, and he's the founder of PranaScience Institute. Dr. Subramanian studies the cellular and molecular mechanisms involved in resistance to cancer therapy at the Medical University of South Carolina in the United States. He's doing intensive research. You are doing intense research on yogic breath benefits on human biology with great results that through the practice of pranayama promotes a state of well-being for health of body and mind. And Dr. Subramanian, I think you were born and you grew up in Tamil Nadu, a beautiful state in South India, with lots of temples and a very powerful spiritual foundation over there. I had a chance and the opportunity to live over there, and I visit Tamil Nadu intensively. So I know very well about your state over there. And you belong to the traditional Siddha practicing family. And therefore, nowadays, I think it's a good combination what you are doing. You know, teaching the practice of yoga asanas, meditation, kirtan, and with the associating it with the scientific research you are doing. So, Dr. Subramanian, I would ask you first of all, what is pranayama? What is it founded in? And what is the notion that we could have about that term, that word, prana?
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure and honor to speak with you and your wonderful audience. And I'm so happy to hear your association with the Tamil Nadu and the Siddha practice. And most of the time, it's hard for me to, or I should introduce the Siddha, the term Tamil Nadu, everything to a foreign interviewer. And now I'm glad that you knew it before, and you're able to relate very well where my origin is. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to connect with you and your audience. First of all, the term pranayama, prana, and where it is coming from, what is it doing, is very profound. So even though the yoga practice is mainly considered as asanas, many people think that asana practice is yoga. And it is not just in the Western world, it is also in India. Everywhere, throughout the world, if you talk about yoga, they think it is asana. And they also think that it is one step further. Many people think, oh, yoga is not just asana, it is Ashtanga yoga or 8-limb practice. And we can go one step further in the Siddha tradition. There are several other types of yoga. Yoga is not just 8-limb practice. Yoga is also practiced through very specific means, it related to specific areas of the body. For example, if you talk about Chandra yoga, Pariyangi yoga, Kesari yoga, these are all many different types of subdivisions or super specialities of yoga. So yoga is a broad, very broad term connecting the 5 different existence of ourselves, to be kind of simplistic. The physical body, the vital energy body, the mind, the wisdom, and the ananda, the bliss, right? All these 5 layers can be touched by one thing, that is the vital energy. So you cannot connect the mind and then the body without the involvement of the vital energy layer, that is the prana, which is the energy that is flowing inside us that we can sense through our breathing. It is not just the breathing, it is the way that we can regulate that breath that we take in or leave out through the process of breathing. So it is the energy. How we use the energy is pranayama. What goes in is the prana. To be even precise, the Siddha tradition calls as pana. Pana is just like an arrow. So you send the arrow inside, right? So that's pana. And the one that goes out is apana, right? So the pana, apana is the main factor, 2 main factors for keeping the vital energy. And what we do with that vital energy is the regulation, control, expansion, constriction, everything that is happening inside through the help of our physical body, our mind. This is happening through the practice of pranayama. So the practice of pranayama is not just breathing in, breathing out, just like a breathing machine. It is much beyond, deeper, by involving the mind. And at one stage, you will leave the mind also. So this will take you to a deeper level of your consciousness. That is another layer in where you can take pranayama to spirituality, right? Pranayama can be useful for just the body. You can use pranayama as a tool only for the body. I don't care what it does to the mind. I don't care what it does to the spirituality. I just want to take care of my body. Beautiful. Pranayama can help. If you want to take care of your breath, like understand, I want to breathe better, pranayama can help. You want to tap into the potential of pranayama and what does it do to my mind? How can I control my mind? That is possible through pranayama. How can I connect that to the wisdom, higher knowledge? Pranayama can help. How can I reach beyond? It is a tool too. Hope I answered that question.
Well, lovely explanation, I have to say. So let us consider for a moment. So this pranayama would create like an energy field in the different components of the individual. You spoke about those 5 koshas, or those 5 elements that constitute the human being, that if I well remember comes in the Taittiriya Upanishad, those 5 koshas, those 5 bodies. Therefore, also it comes to my mind a definition, for instance, when we come to Patanjali in the 2nd sutra, he says, yoga, chitta, vritti, nirodha. But if we come to prana and pranayama, also the mention is prana, chitta, vritti, nirodha. In other words, through the practice of prana, these practices of pranayama, you have access to your mind through the breathing in order to control the mind and make it equipoise, make the mind tranquil and peaceful. Is that so? In other words, through the different practices of the different exercises of pranayama, from the point of view of a scientist and a great practitioner that you are of pranayama, which are the benefits, for instance, as far as the mind is concerned, and as far as the body, the healthy body is concerned as well.
Okay, so let's, it's a very nice connection of how the mind and the breath are connected. We can see it from some of the examples from the ancient code, and then some from the modern science. So let's see, start our journey a little bit back to the stages of Patanjali, Saint Patanjali. Saint Patanjali is from a group of disciples of Master Nandi. Nandi is the big master, and his disciples, 8 of them. So one of them is Patanjali, and then there are 8 others. We don't have to go through the names, but the second one is that Saint Tirumular. Both Saint Patanjali and Tirumular have provided enormous amount of information. In the book, I'll put it in the chat here, the book written by Saint Tirumular is called Tirumantiram. So this is one of my daily reading book. So I read this every single day, and I still, there are 3,000 poems, and every time you study it, every time you read a poem, you get a different light. So this is so profound. There are 3,000 poems in this. And this is one of the master books that combines all the different types of yoga, different types of practices too, like Sarya, Kriya, Yoga, Jnanam, all the different types of practices towards enlightenment, pathways towards enlightenment is explained in Tirumantiram. So Tirumular and Tirumantiram, when you talk about the practice of pranayama, it is very interesting that there is a chapter on pranayama that has 14 poems. That is the one that I tried to translate and publish my first book, PranaScience. In that, the opening poem is very good in terms of connecting the mind and the breath. What it says is that the mind is the master of our 5 senses. have five senses. They are the collector of information, receivers of all the information about the environment, send it to the brain. And mind is the master. So he's the mind is the one that collects, gathers that information. What do I see? Is that a rope or a snake, right? So the sensory inputs are kind of received and sent it to the brain through the mind. And he says, Tirumular says, mind is the master of all our five senses. You cannot control the mind directly. Mind doesn't have any hold. It doesn't have a handle for you to catch. The mind is riding on a horse. That horse is your breathing. So if you handle the horse properly, if you control the horse properly, ride it properly, you can control the mind. You can change the path of the mind by controlling the breath. When the mind is controlled, then all the five senses will be controlled. ஐவர்க்கு நாயகன் அவ்வூர் தலைமகன் உய்யக்கொண்டு ஏறும் குதிரை மற்றொன்றுண்டு மெய்யற்கு பற்று கொடுக்கும் கொடாது போய் பொய்யரை துள்ளி விழுத்திடும் தானே. That is a sutra. That is how the mind is controlling the five senses and the breath is controlling the mind. Without the breath control, you cannot control the mind. So this is a beautiful way of explaining the relationship between these three things from the Tirumantra. Now let's come back to what happened. In 2017, for example, there is a paper published in Science, how the slow breathing process is connected to different functions of the brain. So in between, a lot of things happened. People have shown that how breathing can change the way that some of the EEG, electroencephalogram patterns, like the brain waves, electrical current in the brain, different regions of different wave types. So many studies have shown how breathing can change our heart rate, our EEG pattern, and then also the heart rate variability, stress responses, blood circulation, blood pressure. Many different physiological processes are studied in the early times. And now what is happening is that how this is understood through research in neuroscience, like how specifically breathing is changing the way that brain functions. So the study in 2017 by Kevin Yackel's group, Kevin Yackel, from the University of California system, or Stanford, one of those big schools, right? And so the study is about how the breathing pattern, right, or the rhythm generator, the breathing rhythm generator, when they deleted some of the neurons from this area called pre-Bodzinger complex. I'll just put it in the chat. Pre-Bodzinger complex is an area, a specific area that is generating the rhythm of our breathing. And they found another closely related area to this complex. And they removed some of the neurons, a cluster of neurons from this area. When those neurons are deleted, this is in mice, when they removed those neurons, what happened was the animals started breathing slowly, slower than the controls. So nothing else was disturbed, only the breathing frequency was slowed down. So what happened after that was that when the animals breathe slowly, they are very calm. They were not stressed out. Their anxiety is reduced. And it is because this is connected to another important region in the brain, that is the locus coeruleus. So this locus coeruleus is one of the regions that is kind of the coordinating center for improving your attention, cognitive functions, memory, and so on. These are called the higher order brain functions. So the brain just not normally functioning in the normal mode. It can improve its attention. So what it tells us is that the breathing is not always a top-down approach. Okay, the brain tells how to breathe, the muscles respond, and we breathe, right? It is also bottom up. So we control the breathing, we breathe slowly, and that instruction goes to the brain that this person is breathing slowly. Now you can turn on the higher functions of the brain. When we breathe fast, we are stressed out. Our sympathetic nervous system is taking over, and we breathe slowly. The parasympathetic nervous system or the relaxation response takes over. So this is very interesting connection, how breathing can change the state of mind, how we feel, how we perceive the environment, how we react to something. Everything can be nicely controlled by breathing.
What is the implication of the vagus nerve and and also the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system when you breathe? What's the influence of the breathing or pranayama upon those systems?
Yeah. First of all, I have to say I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm not a physician. I'm a biochemist, basically. So take whatever I say in that respect. Okay. When we are our nervous system, so you have the two arms of the autonomous nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. As I mentioned, the sympathetic nervous system is related to more activity, like higher glucose to the muscles, and it helps us to run fast. And the parasympathetic system is that rest and relax, right? So when we are breathing slowly, the parasympathetic nervous system is stimulated, right? So the vagal nerves are connected to your diaphragm. So the diaphragmatic activity, so how the vagus is that wanderer. So it goes all over the system. And then one of the strongest signals for the vagal nerve stimulation is the largest muscle group in our body, the diaphragm muscle. When we are breathing shallow, right here, maybe 15 times, 20 times a minute, we are not engaging the diaphragm very extensively. And we can engage the diaphragm in many different ways. And then breathing deeper is one way of, sitting up tall, and then breathing deep will help us to stimulate that vagal nerves, right? And that stimulation is connected to mainly the expression of many different, I would say, the outcomes, right? That, for example, we salivate more. Salivation, lacrimation, tears, urination, digestion, defecation, and I also include the L, not just for lacrimation, lactation too. So these are all important functions of the body. Without proper salivation, we will not be able to eat food, main thing, right? So similarly, all the important bodily functions are nicely improved by the parasympathetic nervous system. For that, you need a proper input. So you have to stimulate or take care of the parasympathetic nervous system by instructing it through the breathing. Breathing is the language that your parasympathetic nervous system understands. If you just keep on saying, relax, 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 how will it relax? It doesn't understand the language. If I don't speak with you in Spanish, or if I don't speak with you in English, we will not be having a good conversation. So the same way that the breathing is the language that the brain understands. And when we change the breathing, that instructs the brain to act accordingly. So that is the key outcome. These are some of the outcomes of the parasympathetic nervous system. And this is also related to some of what we do in biochemically with what happens in the saliva. So that is the area that we are actively working on right now.
That's it. I can see exactly that, these salivary secretions and the study you're doing about the hemoglobins and everything else about, just to have an impact on the nerve cells in order just to help to stop cancer cells and to improve, therefore, the well functioning of the trillions and trillions of cells, and to get rid of those tumor cells, in our bodies. So I just read part of your studies and your articles in different magazines that you have published. Could you say something shortly about those good effects of the practice of pranayama?
Yeah. Just one second. Somebody's trying to call me. Okay. So the importance of salivary factors in response to pranayama, which is very interesting. That's a broad field. We just started working on it. And when we do practice pranayama, there are so many things that can happen in our body. There are a lot of things, right? It can be measured in the way that our brain is functioning. So the brain can, kind of react in a different way. Some specific parts of the brain can be activated, and our muscles can activate different, biochemicals. The lungs can function differently. Heart can function differently. All of these changes can be measured with modern technologies. What we did was that when we practice pranayama, the salivation improves, that we produce more saliva. And this has very important consequences in biology, in medicine. One of the things that we found was that when we practice pranayama, the improved salivation, we tested the saliva for many different things. What are all the things that could be possibly changing? So broad level of understanding of what I would say, like high level of understanding of what proteins might be changing. So normally we produce some proteins. When we practice pranayama, we produce a different set of proteins. So what are those different set of proteins that we produce in response to pranayama? So this is where we found that the nerve growth factor, which is important for neurons, our heart wants to beat rhythmically, and the mind or our brain wants to respond, and it wants to grow. It wants to make newer connections as we learn newer things, memorize, recollect. Everything is depending upon the functions of the neurons. And these neurons need a lot of factors, proteins and other molecules for the proper health. And one of those molecules is the NGF, nerve growth factor. So the NGF is an important protein for the growth.
That was a study by Rita Montalcini, the Italian Nobel Prize of Medicine, right?
Yeah. She got Nobel Prize with Cohen for the discovery of NGF. And very interestingly, NGF was discovered in mouse saliva. And Rita seems to, it is known that it is said that Rita isolates NGF in her lab and then put it in her eyes. So she uses NGF as eye drops, and she lived 102 years.
Yeah.
So she was like very sharp in 96 at her 96th birthday. People asked her, how do you feel so young, right? You're like a 16-year-old lady. So she says, yeah, I never married, I never had children. Right? So It's NGF has some profound effects, and now people are using it in Alzheimer's research, right? So there was a study where they used the postmortem samples to understand what NGF, so when NGF is introduced into the system with modern genetic engineering techniques, they were able to find that it is helping the basal forefront complex neurons to kind of survive much better. Their memory is much better. So it is very tightly related to the memory, the functions of the brain, right? So NGF is a critical factor. It is also, as I mentioned, it is important for the rhythmic of beating of a heart and many other parts of the body. And NGF is just one member of the family. There are 4 other members. Or totally 4 members, known members, I would say, and they all, are important in many different areas. One of them is the BDNF. BDNF is also a very important molecule in communications, in addiction, tumor suppression, and so on. So these are the things that are stimulated during our breathing exercises. And what we also found was that you mentioned the immunoglobulins, different types of antibodies that are belonging to the innate immune defense, like the natural defense mechanism based on our prior memories. We have a lot of different immunoglobulins being stimulated and secreted. Where do they secrete? In the mucosal surface, like the nasal mucosa, oral mucosa, all over the mucosal surface in the body. These immunoglobulins are ready, secreted, and ready to capture any invading pathogens. And the idea is that the mucosal system is very important, that the dryness in the mucosa will help the pathogens to infect very easily. If you have dry mouth, there's more chances that we'll get infection. If there's more salivation, the cavities are reduced, so dental caries will be much less. And the health of the oral and nasal pathway is much, much better. And this is also important we talk about all the colony forming bacteria, the good bacteria, the probiotics that we talk about, all, and the gut microbiome that is very important, dependent on the moisture and the other different types of immunoglobulins, that the gut and the brain axis, how the immunoglobulins or different types of immune modulators are key to the functions of the health of these organs. It's very, very tightly regulated or important connected. And the tumor suppressors, many different proteins are there to detect cells that are malformed, that they're could be potentially dangerous or cancerous as they grow. So the proteins that are in the body, the tumor suppressor proteins, they will detect it, and then they will be able to delete those cells or kill those cells. There are mechanisms, but the cancer progression takes advantage of those tumor suppressors. The cancer cells will delete or remove those tumor suppressors so they can advance, right? So they're very aggressive type of cells. So they will remove the suppressors and then take over the whole control. So that's how the cancer progresses. That's one of the ways cancer progresses. And when we do the breathing exercises, we found at least 4 different types of tumor suppressors being stimulated, which is not known before by any different ways of exercises can induce this. And pranayama, of course, that pranayama induction of tumor suppressors is very interesting. That's what we are studying in a current project where we see if these exercises will help breast cancer survivors to improve their symptoms or improve their tumor suppressors.
Finally, doctor, I want to take a lot of time from you because you must be very busy, very occupied anyway. but we know that pranayama, the practices of different types of exercises, they do promote the well-being, of body and mind. In other words, it can increase your power of concentration. You can sleep much better at the same time, you can digest much better your food and everything else. So from the practical point of view, would you be so kind, just to give a couple of breathing exercise from the practical point of view that could help, people just to do some practices, and in this way, and once an ounce of practice is better than tons of theories. Somebody used to say that, but I am more in agreement with the Greeks that they say a good practice needs a good theory behind, just to practice everything. So you're so kind to give, 2 or 3 or whatever exercises you think convenient just to be practiced, for the general well-being.
Yeah, so absolutely. And as you mentioned, there are so many different breathing exercises and multiple.
Your book, your latest book,
the Mind Your Breathing.
Mind Your Breathing, actually it has more than 37 or something.
Yeah, it has.
I must say, it's a wonderful book indeed. This one and the other one you have, PranaScience. So I do highly recommend all the people who can see us to get these 2 books immediately and start reading them.
Thank you. Yeah. So these different exercises can work differently in the same person in different days and different time points, and then everyone will be differently taking up these exercises, experiencing different things. So it's not one exercise will fit for everyone, but everybody can find something from an exercise, like maybe just a very soft, deep breathing, right? Watching the breathing from the tip of the nostril. Start by whenever you want to kind of find some relaxation, find your inner home and want to do something, change something in your mind or body, just watch the breathing. How do I breathe right now? What is the quality of my breathing? Is it shallow? Is it fast? What is the temperature there? What is that cool or the heat that I feel there? And just follow your breathing inside. Am I breathing shallow here? Am I engaging my tummy? Very slowly engage your abdomen. As I spoke, the abdomen is an important point. So engage the abdomen, tuck the tummy in, breathe out, and slowly breathe in. The tummy moves forward and fill all the way up to the collarbone. Take your time to relax and exhale. Very slow inhalation, slow exhalation. These are very key to just come to the center of ourself. When you realize how you breathe, you will move one step further to realize how you are. And then you'll be able to make changes, right? So the deep breathing exercise, all throughout the day, you try to hum, right? The humming is a great exercise when you're doing your chores or sitting in front of a computer. Try to hum because that will extend your breathing. Or if you're a singer, bathroom singer, just sing. Try to connect that with how you chant with one breath, right? Take one deep breath and தெளிவு குருவின் திருமேனி காண்டல் தெளிவு குருவின் திருநாமஞ்செப்பல் தெளிவு குருவின் திருவார்த்தை கேட்டல் தெளிவு குரு சிந்தித்தல் தானே. Easily just relax and then chant the whole entire mantra in one breath. It's a breathing exercise. It is all like on the go, right? You go on the plane, just watch your breathing, just do the deep breathing, do some internal hold, external hold, all the games that you play with your breathing all throughout the day. And then if you have time to sit down and do proper breathing exercises, pranayama, sit down and practice your alternate nostril breathing, right? Very simple, every single day, multiple times a day. Come to, contact with your two nostrils. These are key components. Very, very easily approachable places, the two nostrils, understanding the system, like which nostril is flowing more or less. How do I feel related to that nostril dominance? And how do I balance? How do I balance those two nostrils? Very easy exercises, but profound impact on our body and mind.
Well, I think that these rich explanations that you are giving me are going to be really helpful for everybody from different standpoints. And we do hope, I do hope that listening to you, people will start practicing more pranayama. And in this way, I think you teach also online every day, pranayama every day. And I think we can follow your teachings in order for all of us to benefit at every single level. And I must say right now, and I must recognize that I have enjoyed a lot this conversation with you, very much indeed. And these 45 minutes or something like that have passed like a minute,
Yeah.
Because you are able to involve people's attention through the prana. You stimulate us, and we can feel it anyway. So, Dr. Sundar Subramanian, I am very grateful for you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. And I really expect just to be in touch with you, and at the same time, if any time we have the chance for you to come and visit us in Spain, we'll be, able to organize something for you just to teach us as wide as possible. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Madana. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for having me, and I greatly look forward to be working with you. We'll learn a lot, and I really love to share anything little that I know with the world, so they will know more than what we know today. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.